presentation. So let me just thank you all at the outset for being present here for a small session with us. For the next half an hour, I'll be talking about the different production forecasting approaches. So just to introduce myself, a lot has been said, which I don't know belongs to me or not. So I'm a reservoir engineer working with Schlumberger for the last 2 years, being involved in reservoir simulation and production optimization studies. A couple of questions that every reservoir engineer has to answer who is involved with forecasting studies, either to his management or to his team or to the regulatory bodies are here. So the first question that comes to everybody's mind is how much oil is left. After you estimate that, you need to know how fast it can be produced. After that, you need to know how far are you or how close are you to attaining the ultimate peak rate, right? So are we all aware? Do we have students from the first and second year here? Yes, sir. Okay, so for the next 2-3 slides, I'll be uttering a lot of jargons. Okay, also mind you, there is a small quiz after the presentation. I'm not sure if we have goodies for you, but we'll try and manage something, right? So just make a note of whatever I say. Next 2-3 slides, I'll be uttering a lot of jargons. So if you're not familiar, just make a note of it. We'll see that in detail as we go forward, right? So after you've attained the ultimate peak rate from a well, you need to know how fast will it decline. So as you all might be aware that there are production sharing contracts which might be say for 10 years from now. I need to know how much oil will I be able to produce in the next 10 years. How fast is it going to decline? Are there any contingencies or am I planning something to boost up the production or not? That will help me derive my economics and investments accordingly. Make sense? I can only invest after I know how much I'm going to make. It's not a very realistic figure, but it's again subjective in nature, right? Okay, so coming on to the crux of the presentation, this slide will have a lot of jargons. Please make a note. I'll talk about it in detail going forward. So the first technique that was devised in 1944 is the ARPS technique. This is the most famous one. So when you come on to your third year studies with production engineering 1, you'll be doing a lot of exponential decline studies, mostly. So we very popularly call it as decline curve analysis. So this again encompasses 3 more techniques, right? So the exponential one is the most conservative in nature. Conservative in the sense it's going to give you an estimated ultimate recovery, EUR, to be the least value that you're projecting. Then comes harmonic, which is a very aggressive estimate. Harmonic is a very aggressive estimate. In between these two comes hyperbolic. So hyperbolic has a wide range of EURs that it can give you, firstly. Then came in type curves. So Fedkovich in 1973 made some type curves. So type curves are general standard curves where you just fit your data and see how much are you going to produce. Because empirical forecasting is only valid for boundary dominated flow, BDF, type curves was evaluated. Type curves came in just to encompass the entire life of the well. So bringing into consideration the pseudo steady states as well. So there is a regime when the well flows into transients before the boundary dominated flow has kicked in, right? It's also very difficult to estimate when that exact time comes in. We'll see this going forward as well. After the type curves, when you can forecast, okay, so I'm just catering to conventional oil and gas wells here. No unconventional studies is being talked about. If you want to know that in detail, we can talk about it offline. Then comes material balance, which is a specialized forecast for gas wells or gas reservoirs. So what we experience generally in case of a gas well or multiple gas wells in a single reservoir is that we see compartmentalized behaviors. So if I have 10 different wells belonging to a single compartment, they are likely to show me a similar kind of decline trend. And that is how I forecast them, right? So this is a very famous curve of P by Z on the y-axis, followed by cumulative gas that you produce on the x-axis. Anybody who doesn't understand why I'm using P by Z instead of just pressure? P stands for pressure, right? We all understand that. Okay, so these 3 methods are the ones which you, when you enter the industry, you're going to be using these 3. Also, when you forecast, so before you're making an estimate, you need to be sure of how much confidence you have in the production values that you're establishing or the decline trend that you're establishing, right? Model wells is a concept that was developed by one of our principal reservoir engineers back in Calgary, Canada. She belongs to Schlumberger only. So model wells was devised to forecast brand new wells. There will be questions related to this afterwards, right? So we'll talk about model wells as well. This again is a very, very subjective topic because for brand new wells, you haven't estimated the production decline trend very confidently. Okay, so if you don't want to forecast it empirically or using type curves or using these specialized plots, what you can do is you can use well models. How many of you know what nodal analysis is? So nodal analysis again is a technique that was developed in Schlumberger, which Ankit will focus on in detail. So nodal analysis helps you estimate the operating production rate and the operating pressure. So that gives you an estimate of how your well is going to produce in time. So if today the reservoir pressure is 5000 psi, tomorrow it can be 4000 psi. Day after it can be 3000 psi, right? I should be aware, or I should have an idea of how the production rate is going to change with respect to decreasing reservoir pressure, what we most famously call as depletion. Or you should be aware of how your production rate is going to be affected by the increasing water cut, or the increasing gas oil ratio, or for gas wells, the increasing oil gas ratio. Make sense? Okay, after you have a well model, another technique is to model the reservoir. People into the fourth year who are studying simulation now would be aware that we built a reservoir simulation model that is used to mimic the actual geology downstairs. So what's happening 10,000 feet below the mean sea level, you can actually mimic that using a lot of information from seismic, petrophysics, and geology before simulation kicks in. So after you have your simulation model ready, you can simulate it over time to see how the fluid is flowing into the reservoir through the wells. After that, what you can do is you need to do history match. History match is an advanced concept. I'll not go into that details. It's just matching the production that you've observed, that you've obtained at your flow meters with the estimates that your software gives you. So that's history matching. You need to play around with a lot of parameters there. So this is done by Eclipse, which again is a Schlumberger application. Okay, so these are the different approaches. I used a lot of jargons here. I'll try and clarify as many as possible in the coming slides. If I'm unable to do that, just ask me at the end. Okay, so as I mentioned here that empirical forecasting is valid only for boundary dominated flow. No transients are taken into consideration here. Type curves, yes, transients plus the boundary dominated flow, right? So it's very important for us to understand the basic difference between forecasting a conventional reservoir and forecasting an unconventional reservoir. Do we understand what a conventional reservoir is? Somebody from the audience can explain? Conventional reservoirs. Are we all petroleum engineers here? Yes, sir. Do we understand what conventional reservoirs is? Anybody, feel free. Your answer might be right or wrong, doesn't matter.
So the reservoirs in which the oil came from somewhere else, it migrated into that reservoir. The reservoirs in which the oil migrated from.
Okay, so from the source rock into the trap, right? Okay, so those are the reservoirs which are conventional in nature. So all the sandstone and the carbonate reservoirs that you see most commonly throughout the world are the conventional reservoirs. Your unconventionals would be shale gas and CBM, tight reservoirs, low permeability, something unconventional from the normal, right? So for the case of a conventional reservoir, what will happen when the well comes online? This is the case of a horizontal well. So for the first few days, the flow will be from the fractures that is perpendicular to the wellbore. So this is what we call as fracture linear flow. After a couple of days, transient flow would kick in, wherein the pressure wave would start advancing towards the boundary. Unless and until it strikes the boundary, this particular period is called transient flow. As this gentleman very finely said that the conventional reservoirs have a good amount of permeability and porosity value. So the transients can travel at a good pace. Within a period of several weeks to say a few months, the transient regime ends and you experience the boundary. What does boundary dominated flow means? That from now on, the entire pressure decline would be a function of the support from the boundary. So in case it is a pseudo steady state, the decline will be uniform throughout the reservoir. In case it is a constant flow boundary, say an aquifer or an edge water drive, so the response from the aquifer would be a function of the depletion, right? Would directly govern your depletion. Okay, so whatever I said till now was just physics behind this. What is important for you to understand is the most dominant flow regime for the case of a conventional reservoir is the boundary dominated flow. So the crux from this slide is to understand that for a conventional reservoir, this boundary dominated flow is the dominant flow regime. And this is where ARPS is applicable. Coming on to the case of unconventionals, as I just mentioned, that for the first few days, the flow will be from the fractures which are linearly aligned, perpendicular to the wellbore. After that, your transient flow will kick in. So here as well, the pressure variants are advancing towards the boundary, right? What will happen in this case is the pressure advance is not that smooth because the permeability is very, very low. For the shale or CBM, the permeability is very low, but yes, the porosity is good enough value, right? You can experience two kind of flows here. The first can be a formation linear flow, wherein the fluid flows from the fracture into the wellbore. This is a linear flow, right? One direction. In case there is a cross flow between fractures as well, we very popularly call it as bilinear flow. How do you identify them? So you might not be able to see this right away. So what you do is you have a log-log plot of rate versus time. If you see a half slope, 1/2, that means it is a typical signature of formation linear flow. In case you see a quarter slope, it is a typical signature of the bilinear flow. Are we getting it till now? It's no rocket science. After that, it's very tough to establish in case of an unconventional well when the boundary dominated flow has kicked in, because I would not certainly call it a pseudo steady state. I'm not sure if the depletion throughout the reservoir would be uniform or not. It might be a non-uniform depletion as well. So I'll just call it boundary dominated flow using a generalized term. So what we get from here is the very dominant flow regime for the case of an unconventional well is the transient flow regime, the crux of this slide. And this is the region where the empirical forecast or the type curves cannot hold. Type curves can be, but we generally don't estimate them using the type curves for unconventionals. We have a specialized method for that. Okay, so coming on to the main part of the presentation, I'll start the first technique here. It's going to be very graphical, no equations for you. So what you see here as a continuous graph, a continuous plot, is the production values that has been noted out, that has been back allocated or either recorded. It is a smooth curve wherein we've joined all the production data points, right? Because they are going to be discrete in nature. What you do then is, this is a semi-log plot of rate versus time firstly. So on the x-axis you have a linear date column. On the y-axis you have rate, the production rate that you produce in log format, a logarithmic axis. What I do then is I establish what will be my history period, which I consider representative of continuing into the future. What is a history match period? We'll see that in the coming slides as well. So after I match a line through this, the best fit with different exponents, as we'll discuss now. So the topmost line is the harmonic decline. As you can see here, this is the rate, this is the date. So as of 2020, I am producing a good enough rate, right? So this is a very aggressive estimate. Also, the line shows you that the production decline is going to be very, very gentle. It's not going to be steep. So you'll have a better estimated ultimate recovery, EUR in short. The bottommost line here is the exponential decline. So exponential decline is the most conservative, as I mentioned. So exponential has a B value of 0. What is B value? It's the ARPS decline exponent. So ARPS developed a technique wherein he used exponents to define the relationship between time and your production rate. So B value of 0 corresponds to